Hey everybody, hope this finds you doing well. This is Danelle here at Networkchain. Let's go ahead and jump right into it with the cryptocurrency market update. Bitcoin currently trading at $108,518, currently up over 7% over the past week. Ethereum up nearly 12%, currently trading just over $2,500. XRP trading almost 9% at $2.19. We see Solana is currently up over 14%, currently trading at $152. Tron still in the top 10, currently trading above 4% at around 27 cents. Then you have Dogecoin, the largest meme coin of them all, currently trading just under 17 cents, up nearly 10%. And then Cardano rounding out the top 10, currently trading at nearly 4% at 56 cents. So we have a lot of news stories coming into the market over the past week. And one of the biggest news stories comes from Gemini, which is one of the largest US cryptocurrency exchanges. They recently launched tokenized stocks, and they're starting with MicroStrategy, also known as Strategy, the ticker MSTR. So they are now available for trade in the European market. So you can see here, Gemini customers in the European Union can now buy tokenized MicroStrategy on Gemini and can take it anywhere on chain. This means that anyone in the world with a smartphone and an internet connection can gain access to tokenized US equities like MicroStrategy on the blockchain. This is the future of finance, and the future has arrived. So basically, what happens when it comes to tokenized securities, particularly when it comes to US stocks, what happens generally, if it's a legitimate operation, is that you will see that the brokerage, in this case Gemini, or exchange, in this case Gemini, would actually have a share or amount of shares of that particular stock that is going to be backed one-to-one. So these tokens could be representative. Let's say Gemini has one strategy stock, which is currently worth or trading around $390 to $400, and so they can split that up into 10. So let's say that each token would be worth, let's say strategy is currently trading at $400. They have one share at $400. They are going to be able to sell if they choose to and break it up into 10 tokens. So we'll say that each token currently, with my strategy trading at $400, that each token would be trading at around $40. Of course, it would fluctuate depending on how much strategy would go up or down in price. But basically, these tokenized shares would be backed by actual strategy stock. So there are some platforms out there that claim to trade tokenized securities. You would have to check to see with that particular exchange or that particular platform whether or not they're actually backed fully by the actual shares of that particular company, because some people just like to speculate upon speculate upon speculate. So you definitely want to be careful with that. But some places like Gemini, for example, are looking to trade tokenized securities with those securities being backed by the actual shares. So you can see some of the takeaways and key takeaways from being able to have tokenized securities and being able to trade these stocks on the blockchain. Basically, you can see that you have an option to have fractional stock ownership. So as I mentioned in my example, if you have 10 tokens to one share of strategy, you don't have to have 10 tokens. You can only have, if you can only afford 2, for example, which would be currently at today's prices at around $80, then you can have 2 as opposed to 10. So the reason why it's going to be so amazing when it comes to tokenization of pretty much everything is that, for example, if you wanted to buy a share of a building, like a building in New York City, one of the biggest developments in New York City, instead of having to pony up millions and millions of dollars to be able to buy one of the condos in that particular building, you can own a share of that condo and say you have $1,000 and you want to invest $1,000 because you believe that there's going to be a lot of action, a lot of people who are going to be buying into that building, and that the value of that building will continue to go up over time. Then you can actually have a fraction, you can have a share of that building using tokenized securities. And depending on what platform that you use, there's going to be opportunities for you to be able to buy a portion of that building, basically using tokenized security. So once again, using the blockchain, being able to be on chain, being able to trade 24/7. It doesn't necessarily have to have restrictions in terms of the time that you have to hold that particular investment. So this type of technology is going to open up the world of investing to people like me and you who normally wouldn't be able to have access, for example, to be able to buy into a building in Manhattan. So it's going to be able to offer opportunities for people, particularly in the retail space, to be able to have access to startups, for example. You don't have to be an accredited investor. So there's a lot of things that tokenized securities will be able to open up. But as you can see here, Gemini breaks down, for example, you'll have the chance to have fractional stock ownership, as I mentioned. This opens up access to U.S. markets for anyone, anywhere, and allow investors to participate in a company's growth without needing large upfront capital. Keep all your investments on chain. So if you want to stay on chain, you continue to live by the blockchain, then you can continue to do that, buying and selling tokenized stocks without the types of delays that sometimes that you have, or the restrictions that you have on when you can trade. When it comes to US equities, for example, it only trades 5 days a week, as opposed to being on chain, it trades 24/7, 365. And then also it's expanded access to the US market. So a lot of places around the world do not have access, or have limited access to US stocks, for example, US real estate as another example. So this is a way for people around the world being able to have the opportunity and the access to the US market using on-chain stock trading. So this is just the beginning. Gemini, obviously they say they're starting off with strategy, but there's going to be more stocks that they're going to be offering, I'm sure, on their platform. And then one of the larger growing Bitcoin, I should say growing brokerages, period, in terms of the amount of money that they are getting under assets under management, as well as being a brokerage for the youth. It's basically really catering itself as a platform to Gen Y and Gen Z and upcoming Gen A. And they are expecting a huge wealth transfer from the boomers going to those generations. And so they're trying to really come at and cater to these younger generations, because they believe that they'll be able to get that market share from the Schwabs, from the Morgan Stanleys, from the Goldman Sachs, which are more legacy brokerages and firms. So they have a huge announcement actually coming up tomorrow, or later on today, depending on when you watch this video, or I should just say on June 30th. A lot of people are speculating that it's going to have to do with crypto and stable coins, and also tokenization, similar to what Gemini is doing, of securities. So obviously we will not know until that announcement is actually made, but most people are speculating that they will also be making their own announcement of the opportunity for people in particular Europe, probably starting out, around the world after that sometime, but they'll be able to have the chance to trade, sell, buy tokenized securities on their platform. So big news. We shall see and keep you posted on that in next week's video. Also, Coinbase, the largest US crypto native exchange, they also continue to lean in on stable coins. They actually have a little less than a 5% stake in Circle, which recently went public several weeks ago, which is doing incredibly well. We've talked about stablecoins, and Circle are the issuers of USDC stablecoin. They have a large stake in Circle. They also have a partnership with Circle where they receive 50%, I believe, of the reserve income that they receive from their reserves. Circle makes money off of putting the money that they back these stable coins into treasuries, and so that's just income that just comes in every quarter, every year, from holding those backed dollars into US treasuries. So Coinbase is definitely getting a piece of that as well. As I mentioned, they are continuing to move forward with stable coins, and you can see here Coinbase Payments is a stablecoin payment stack designed for commerce platforms. So they're basically looking to provide options for vendors who are looking to accept stablecoins, and if they want to also be on chain, they also can see the benefits from using stablecoins as opposed to using a Visa or MasterCard or accepting Visa or MasterCard, they will also be able to accept stable coins. And in doing that, that's going to lower the fees for them, because vendors do have to pay fees to American Express and Visa and MasterCard. And if you've noticed, I'm sure many of you have, a lot of these companies now, they already usually bake in that fee into their charges, but now they are telling you, hey, you have to pay an extra 2% or an extra 3% if you're going to be paying by a credit card. So if they use stable coins, those fees are a lot less, not even close to the 2 to 3% that they have to pay for these credit cards. And so it also benefits them as well as you as someone who's coming in as a consumer. So they're offering stablecoin payment stacks for commerce platforms, where you can also, once again, settle those transactions quickly, 24/7, securely, using the blockchain. And with Coinbase, they're using Base, which is a Ethereum platform, and it's already live with Shopify, which is one of the largest online merchant platforms. And it, as you can see, is the fastest way for payment service providers, marketplaces, and commerce infra providers to bring stablecoin payments to the market. As we mentioned with Circle, Coinbase has a stake in Circle, and Circle has been an amazing IPO up to this point. It's starting to finally come back down to earth, but you can see that it started out on the market. The IPO price was around $31. It went all the way up to $263 just in a span of around 20 days or so. And now it's starting to come back down to earth a little bit, but it's still, if you got in at the IPO, which a lot of accredited investors were able to do, people like me and you, unfortunately, a lot of us were not able to get access to that IPO and that $31 share price. Tokenization will allow us to have access, will allow us the opportunity to be able to get into something like this pre-IPO, or when it first gets onto the market at reasonable prices, or being able to get shares of it if it's a very high price, just so we can get a piece of the action as well. So there's so much more exciting things are to come to the blockchain space, to cryptocurrency, obviously to Bitcoin, as we see here on the Bitcoin Treasuries list. You can see there's a nice little layout, a new layout that bitcointreasuries.net has for us here. But I just wanted to mention that Tesla and Coinbase are the only two companies in the S&P 500, which is the index benchmark in the US stock market. Those are the only two that currently hold Bitcoin on the balance sheet. We truly believe that there will be a ton more over the next several years, potentially before the end of this year as the S&P 500 rebalances. We may have a couple more companies that have Bitcoin on the balance sheet, or soon to make announcements that they will be buying Bitcoin, will soon be on, or in, I should say, the S&P 500. So we'll definitely, obviously, keep you tuned as much as we can. We are on X as well as IG at Networkchain nearly every day. And of course, we're right here with you every week on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate you, and we look forward to linking up with you soon on the Networkchain. In the meantime, take care. Bye-bye.